Welcome to the PAC-Cast. I'm your host Kieran, I use he/him pronouns, and we are the Peer Action Collective, a group of young people researching and working to reduce youth violence in Merseyside. We hope to achieve this by interviewing 10 to 20-year-olds and using the findings to create dynamic and meaningful social action. So, why listen to the PAC-Cast? Well, it will be jam-packed full of content. We will use the space to keep you updated on our journey, shine a spotlight on deserving people and organisations within our community, interview local influencers and raise the voices of young people, all while having some fun and laughs along the way. So, grab a drink, maybe a packet of sweets, settle down and join us on our journey. This is the PAC-Cast.
Hello and welcome to the PAC-Cast. I'm very excited. On our first episode, we're going to be joined by some of our peer researchers. How are you feeling today?
Good. Excited.
Good. I'm really glad you're excited. This has been a long time coming. I know we've been wanting to do this for a while, and I'm really glad that we can finally start our first episode. So, should we start off by names, pronouns, and if I can ask you to use 3 words that you think would describe PAC, what would they be?
I guess I'll go first. I'm Lily. My pronouns are she, her, and they, them. And if I was to sum up PAC in 3 words, I would say exciting, helpful, and creative.
Hi, I'm Andrea and my pronouns are she, her. And 3 words, I'm going to say inspiring because hopefully it will inspire many young people. Hard working because it's a lot of hard work, and rewarding.
Yeah, I'm Kate. I use they, them. I feel like mine's very much the same. It's very exciting. It's a lot of hard work, and it's just, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just so rewarding to watch.
Yeah.
Like watch everything unfold. It's perfect.
So it sounds like that rewarding element. I think you all said that. Like, how important that is that to you, do you think?
I think it's very important because not only am I doing, like, to be honest, I weren't even going to apply for the job. But I think what it came down to was it's going to help so many other people. So I think it being rewarding is so important to me because it's helping so many people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also wasn't going to apply because I didn't think I was like good enough for the role. So it just took like one person kind of being like, no, you can do it, to like properly like get me to apply. And I think once I applied, I kind of realized I could do it, especially with it being so rewarding. It is kind of just like, I can see that what I'm putting my time and effort towards is creating something good.
Mm-hmm.
I guess for myself, when I found out about it, I was going to apply because I've done stuff like this in the past, but it hasn't gained this much momentum as much as PAC has. So just seeing how much we've already impacted our areas, it's brilliant.
That's amazing. I guess if we start right from the beginning, then like what has your journey been to get to this point to join PAC? Where has your kind of journey took you?
Okay, so as I said, I wasn't going to apply for it, and it took like one of the youth workers I worked with in a youth centre to say, oh, it's so down your road. It's literally everything you want to do in life. Like, I want to work with children who struggle with youth violence, and that's something I've always wanted to do. So that's why I kind of did apply, and I've always done stuff like from the age of like 12, I've been volunteering in the youth clubs, trying to work with young people. And I think what kind of got me into youth violence specifically was the fact that my brother has been stabbed, and it hit home quite a bit, but I feel like that kind of helped. Obviously it was hard, but I felt like that kind of pushed me to try and do this project because not only have I experienced it, me and my family firsthand, it pushed me to do that.
I think that's really inspirational that, you know, you use that as like something to drive you forward and to motivate you rather than something to like bring you down. I know that must be really hard, but I guess I'm interested how much has that helped you like during the project if you're struggling to think, you know, I'm doing this for a good reason?
Yeah, obviously, maybe after some sessions where we've been speaking about it, it can like kind of put me in a bad mood or like affect me mentally. But I'm kind of good with kind of reminding myself like why I'm doing it. I've got a little sister to look look at and be like, I want a better for here. I work with younger children and I look at them and I'm like, I want better for them. So I'm really good at reminding myself why I'm doing it, who I'm doing it for, what's going to come out of it.
That's amazing. Would this be all your first jobs then, Pac?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most of us, this is one of the first jobs we've ever had. And for it being a first job, it's amazing.
See, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think all of you said that you were a bit nervous. You were a bit like, can I do this job? And it's like, I think a lot of young people think that to get into their first job, it's really difficult to get over that barrier of like, can I actually do this? Like, how did you find that, like, that experience?
I think that once we met each other, that helped me a lot because obviously we did naturally gravitate towards certain people. But then eventually getting to know everyone, it definitely made it a lot easier to go to sessions and be like, right, I can talk. And if I make mistakes, that's okay. No one's going to be like, you said silly. I'm just going to be like, I'm sorry. I mean, like, even now, still, everyone in session knows that I end practically every sentence with, does that make sense? Because I'm just like, I'm so afraid of just not making sense and just sounding silly. But I've gotten over that quite a lot through the whole project and process. That became one word. There's an instance of silly.
But I guess, why do you think it is that so many young people don't believe in themselves? Like, is there something that makes young people not believe in themselves, do you think?
I think it's partly because of the stereotypes that young people have been given. The main one being with internet and social media, like, oh, you're always on that phone. Oh, it's because of that phone. Or you're always on your Xbox, PlayStation, whatever console you're on. Which in turn affects the young people mentally because they're like, oh, well, I'm just lazy. I'm undetermined. I don't want to do this. And in turn, even though they're not those things, they see themselves as that, which affects their confidence, which in turn affects when they're going out to do stuff. They could be given an opportunity, and because they're self-conscious, they won't go for it.
Yeah, I think that, and also the fact that big opportunities like this don't come up that often. Like, I know that I would not have known about this unless, I was already in like the YPAS kind of space. So I think a lot of young people just don't get these opportunities. And when they do come up, like me and Andrea weren't going to apply. I didn't think I was going to be good enough for it. So I think that also has a knock-on effect in like, okay, well, I can't do this because I'm a young person. I can't do it because I'm lazy. Everyone's told me that my whole life kind of thing. Like, that has such a knock-on effect that you almost don't realize it at first. And then like, as you get these opportunities and you do more, you just see yourself grow and you look at those stereotypes that you once did like believe and you're just like, you were wrong. I think that's so empowering to just be able to look back and be like, nah, that was silly, you were wrong.
Jobs like this allow you to grow and develop.
So I guess along those lines, with it being your first job, I guess, would you mind sharing me like your high point and your low point of the project?
I would say my low point was at the start. It was very slow. We done training that I've already done. I know safeguarding, I know ACEs training. I have done all that, so I was kind of bored. I was like, when are we going to get into it? When are we going to go meet young people? When are we going to go speak to them? That's what I wanted to do. And when it took like 3-4 months to get into it, I was bored. I was tired of it.
We might have to edit that bit out.
No, yeah. Don't tell Lil. But yeah, it was kind of tiring as well. Also, like, I had like quite bad mental health, so I was like trying to like get out of bed and to do something that I wasn't really keen on was hard. And I would say the high point for me was right now. We're getting into it. It's getting fast tracked. Like, this is getting up and running. A podcast with Pride, with social action. It's all starting to kick in and it's fast paced. So that's what I'm very keen on.
Yeah, I think mine's really similar. My low point obviously wasn't when we were training because I didn't have experience with things, so I did find that quite interesting. But I had a big struggle because I was in college and in work. And I think, like, obviously any sort of education takes up a lot of time. But because I was kind of an artist, a lot of artists have this stereotype of being very perfectionist, which is completely correct. So you'll even see it in, like, again, I ask if I make sense because I have to make sure that everyone understands what I mean. So I think that definitely held me back so much, having college where I had to be perfect and work where, again, I had to be perfect. And those having like longer days really did like take that knock-on effect with me. And then neither of them were getting that perfect that I needed or that I wanted. And then I had to kind of settle for Everton being second best. And now I like prioritized Everton properly. I've learned how to do that properly. And now I can look at work and be like, right, I'm doing my best. I'm like, I'm so proud of what I'm doing at the moment.
You
like,
should be.
Thank you. I think everyone can kind of see that I've, even in the last couple months, I've improved. And I think as much as like everyone wants to go into a new job and be like, I'm perfect at this, I know everything, I can do this, this, and this. Like, it's so important to be able to look at your colleagues and be like, I've seen you grow so much. And that's one thing that like at the end of the project, I'm going to be so proud of myself for. I don't know if I actually answered the question or if I made up a new one.
No, you definitely did answer the question.
No, you answered the question. And yeah, following on from that, we've all just in this short time, we've seen each other grow so much. It's amazing.
I mean, who would have thought we'd be doing a podcast like
I know.
a few months ago?
All organised by us.
I'd have
as well.
called you crazy.
Honestly, like, I think it's amazing that young people are given this opportunity, because I know the words youth-led, it's often thrown around a lot as like a tick box exercise. Let's say this is youth-led, but it's not actually. What do you think it is about this project that makes it truly youth-led, and why do you think that's important, that it is actually youth-led?
I feel like as much as it's a stereotypical answer, it is the young people who work on it, because obviously we are quite lucky in the fact that we have been able to take a lot of control over our ideas. We've been able to like share our ideas and, you know, properly say to people who maybe are older than us and be like, this is what we want. We want it to happen like this. And obviously they'll build on it with us and we'll come to a compromise, which I think a lot of places won't do. They'll be like, we have this idea. This is also your idea. So we'll take this one like part of your idea, incorporate it into ours, and then that's it. We've done our part. We listen to you. And it's just like, no, you need to go further than listening to us. We need to have some part in like doing things. And even like us as young people are still looking at other young people for inspiration. Like we're looking for change makers. And even like you said, you look at like your younger sister. I have a nephew who I always look at and I'm just like, I know that what I'm doing is going to have an effect on your future. And I think that's so important that the young people now we're looking at, I mean, we are young people, so they are kind of like our peers, but they're still important to us. And it's not just like, well, we're the young people. It's like, we are all the young people.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think it also helps that we're young people ourselves, because obviously we're reaching out to people aged 10 to 20. And because we're young people ourselves, we're in a much closer age bracket. So a lot of young people who otherwise wouldn't go and speak to professionals, they're going to feel a lot more comfortable coming and speaking to us, which is why it is so important that there are youth-led projects like this, and that they're given a space to express their voice.
Yeah.
I agree. I think I always feel ancient because I'm 21 and I feel dead old on this project.
No, but I agree, because so as someone who grew up in youth clubs like all my life, I had people coming and saying, this is what we want and you're going to do it for us. And I feel like it's so important that we are generally like giving the youth a voice. And I feel like you see it a lot in politics, or like older people will be like, this is what younger people need, this is what they want, blah, blah. And it's like, why are you telling us what we need and what we want? How about you sit back and we tell you what we want and what we need for once? Because it's very rare. And I feel like it's so patronising for an older person to tell us what we need. Like, how
Times
do you
have
know?
changed since they were a young person.
How do you know?
Problems that they will have had. So if we take the example of bullying, they didn't necessarily have phones and internet back then. So while they could leave all the bullying and incidents at the door, it now follows us inside our homes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it relates to what you were saying about like stereotypes. It's that stereotype of like, well, young people are lazy. It's just like, all right, you were lazy when you were a young person, but we're not. Like,
You can't paint everyone with the same brush.
Exactly.
I think there is a stereotype around young people that we have it easy. I think from a lot of older people,
We have it so much worse.
We have it so
like,
easy.
not to discredit anything that any other generation have gone through, but arguably we do have it worse because, like you said, there's social media that follows us. We have constant places where we're being told you are not good enough. Like,
We've gone through a pandemic.
we have
to-
such a weird like climate that we have to look forward to and like grow into. Like,
Yeah.
I've
We've got all
I-
these irreversible issues.
exactly.
I mean, do you think that young people's voices were taken seriously during the pandemic? Because I mean, there's a lot of talk that the government really didn't focus on what young people actually needed during that time.
No.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think, not even just in the pandemic, I don't think young people's voices are heard and are listened to, especially if you don't know how to get your voice out there. Like, my voice will get heard because I will make sure my voice gets heard. But if you're a young person and you want to say something about, like, maybe youth violence, but you don't know how to get your voice out there, it can be very hard.
It's like the two sides to their argument is like, well, young people, they don't do anything, they don't say anything. But if you do say something, it's just like, well, you're a young person, you don't know what you're talking about, get older. But then once you're older, it's like, all right, well, I should have been able to speak when I was younger and now I'm stuck in this situation kind of thing.
And at the end of the day, we're the ones living in it in the present. If you don't deal with the problems when they occur at the root, they just evolve into this big, massive mess that takes ages to detangle.
I think one of the most inspirational things about this project is how young people have all come together to make a difference. And I know, Andrea, you said you were quite confident that your voice would always get heard.
Yeah.
But for some young people, they might not think that, and they might not think their voice can get heard. And I guess a project like this where we can all come together, it's that collective power to make a difference, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So talking about stereotypes, I know we're all very passionate about Merseyside. We all live here. That's where our research is being done. What do you think the stereotype of young people from Merseyside is, and do you think that's accurate?
No, I feel like a lot of people look at young people, especially like, you know, our demographic being like 10 to 20-year-olds. They get such a stereotype of just like the scallies. I was always taught to call them scallies. My older sisters always used to call them that. But like this idea of like dark jackets, like I think North Face jackets are always the stereotype.
Yeah, the North Face.
And like cycling on bikes, and it's just like, I'm sorry, but I don't see someone on a bike and be like, you're bad, you're on a bike. Like, you just think, oh, that's someone on a bike.
Well, yeah, like you can't wear dark clothes without being looking suspicious. And when the pandemic hit, wearing masks, they used to be a stereotype for people going in and robbing shops. But now it's become an everyday item with how generalised it has since COVID.
One thing that I had the teacher say to us, obviously it was like when we'd just gone back after the pandemic, was about 2 years ago, if you'd have seen a bunch of masks on the floor, you'd think that there'd have been like a bunch of doctors having a party there. And I just thought, like, I always imagine that, and it's just like, you would have, like, you wouldn't see a mask on the floor and be like, oh, that's someone's mask. You'd be like, oh, like, that's a doctor's mask. You'd look at it, and it just shows how much, like, something big can change someone's views, which is why we are so important, because we are the something big, we are the pandemic, but instead of making people's lives a misery, we're making people's lives better.
Yeah, we're looking to make an improvement, even if it's the smallest change. It makes a ripple effect like a drop in the ocean.
What do you think specifically about Merseyside? What do you think people think about this area?
There's a lot of jokes about us being like thieves.
Yeah, I think there is a bad view on it, especially like the Sun has written bad stuff about us, about football, and even like the Scally term. Like, I know I'm a Scouser, you can tell I'm a Scouser, but I don't talk like, let's get some chicken. Like, where did that come from to let's get some chicken and a can of Coke. Like, no one speaks like that. Okay, maybe some people speak like that, but it's like, it's so put on. But I do think that it's bad, especially around young people, bad views around Merseyside, which, okay, some can be true, but having it as an overview of all young people is so negative.
Especially just Merseyside. Like, I'm 99% sure if you go anywhere in the world, there will be like a subsection of young people who, yeah, will be violent and will do this. But at the same time, like, there are adults who'll do that. It doesn't stop. You don't just like reach the end of
It's
like,
inevitable to like get rid of all things bad. There's always going to be that one person.
I think the media plays a huge role in that too, don't they? I mean, look back to Hillsborough with the coverage there, and then you look at anything that happens, it's like they paint young people with the same brush as being bad from here. And I think that media representation really does make an impact in how people view the area.
Yeah, well, with social media and such, it's made it so that information gets out a lot faster than it would typically. But as well as that, things can, unfortunately, there can be edited and a lot of untruthful stuff can be shown. A lot of this comes with the likes of magazines, for example, where you look at people in magazines and you can see, oh, well, they look dead skinny, but in reality, a lot of the time, it's photoshopped and unrealistic. And that can be the same with quite a lot of events and stuff that happens with young people. Certain clips will be taken and then edited together to make it look like something it wasn't.
Yeah, I think that like that speed of like, this has happened somewhere else, but 20 minutes later, you know about it. It leaves a lot of like gaps in the story where people obviously, they aren't going to take like half an hour to sit down, read everything, then write their article. They're just going to be like, all right, 5 minutes. What can I get from this and how quickly can I write something?
That's how rumours are created.
Exactly.
Because there's gaps, especially when it comes to youth violence. Like, someone could be stabbed and it's like, in 5 minutes there's a news article on it and it's like, oh, but he could have been part of a gang, but was he? Like,
it's like this blame culture. If he is part of a gang, then his life doesn't matter.
No, yeah, exactly.
That's what it.
Exactly.
That infuriates me. Like, because he was part of a gang or because he could be selling drugs and stuff doesn't mean he got stabbed or shot or his life did not matter, because you don't know the backstory of that. He could have been selling drugs to make money for his family. I don't condone it at all. I'm not trying to romanticize it at all because I hate it. But there is so much more factors to being in a gang, selling drugs, doing this and that. It's like, it's so, the blame, the victimization in the news articles are terrible.
So what do you think does kind of, I mean, from what we've learned in our project so far, what do you think does entice people into those cultures?
One of the things that I know has been seen and happened is exploitation. It's a big thing that happens with young people because, like we were saying before, you can be reached on your phone alone. From something I went to with another one of our peer researchers, the youngest person that's got involved in county lines was 6. Like, it doesn't matter what age you are, but you can still be exploited. And if you don't know the signs, you don't know what to look for. So that's definitely something that gets people involved in this culture, because unfortunately, once you get roped into it, it is so hard to get out.
Yeah, it's the ideation at first. It's that like, okay, well, you do this little thing, I'll give you £20, you can get whatever you want with that. And then it kind of goes up, but also like what you have to do goes up. And it's this, like, it's the metaphor of like the frog in the pot, you know? You put it in cold water and gently heat it up, it's not going to realise it's being boiled. Like, that's kind of where it starts. It's that like, oh, this is fine, this is my friend asking me to do a favour. All right, this is slightly worse, but it's still my mate. You know, they won't do anything to hurt me. And then it goes on from there, and
Not
you end
seeing
up
the red flags.
Because
so
a lot of people who do get involved in gang activities are generally out because, say, some lad smokes and he doesn't have money. Oh, I'll take you £20 for weed. Oh, can I have another favour? And then you're £200 in debt, and they're like, oh, I'll send you to so and so. You're gonna sell this much for me so you can get rid of your debt. But I think it's so romanticized, and say you're like 16, your parents don't work, you got no money, or your mates have nice trackies, Nike, Jordans on, and they're like, oh, but you can do this and that, and you can get all the same stuff we have. Coming from a kid who has nothing, that looks so great, and the pros outweigh the cons. And you see it in video games, you see it in TVs, you see it in everyday life. So it's almost normalized, and I think that's such a terrible thing, because from outside view, it doesn't look that bad.
Yeah, I know you spoke a bit earlier about your own experience, Andrea, and I won't ask you to go into that too much, but what do you think the reality is of growing up here?
It's kind of harder for boys, I think. I'll give them that. It's harder for girls to get into that situation where boys, if all your mates are doing it, it's kind of hard to like say like, oh no, this and that. But I think, yeah, I forgot what the question was, not gonna lie.
It's just what was the reality of life growing up for you? Like,
growing up wasn't the best. Obviously, I grew up in youth clubs, and I adored it. My childhood in youth club sense was amazing. Trips all the time, and now as I'm older, I work there now, and I look after the young people, and I think that's it's such a lovely thing to do, because it's like they gave me a safe place that I didn't have growing up, and it's like I can do that for them now.
It's kind of come like full circle.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
So it's now time in the podcast where we'll be shining our PAC spotlight on an organisation or young person that we think deserves some recognition in the area. And this week, we're going to be focusing on Love Lux, which I know we all love.
Yeah.
Love Lux is a cafe, very LGBT friendly, inclusive. So yeah, we absolutely love Love Lux, and we just want to say thanks to them, and they've hosted us many times. If you have any young people or organisations that you think are doing good work, then please feel free to reach out to us and let us know. Okay, so should we go into a bit about what stage in the project we're at now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the project, we have not long started our interviews. So if anyone would like to get involved, obviously let us know. We have a link tree. You can reach us on our social media platforms, or you can reach us on our email. But yeah, we've just started our interviews. They'll finish around September, and then alongside everything, we're doing a lot of social action. This can involve urban intervention. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but yeah.
And how have you all found that interview process? Like, I know for me, I was very nervous before, like when I was starting the project, about the potential of interviewing other young people. You know, and maybe Andrea, you weren't maybe as nervous. I don't know.
I'm not as nervous, obviously. If I am nervous, it's because of the tech side. I'm terrible when it comes to technology. So that's where I'm nervous about using Fatima, which is our own little app that we've got created for us to do all the tagging. That's why I'm nervous. But obviously when it comes to speaking to the younger people, it's something I've done since I was like 13. So I'm not nervous for that part.
And for the two of you, I mean, I'm assuming this is something new for you, Kate, to going in and interviewing young people. How have you found that process?
Yeah, I think like it's been rewarding in the sense of like I grew up with quite bad social anxiety. I've always been very afraid of like people, I guess. Which is why like when we started, I was kind of nervous, but I've kind of through the project I've grown a whole lot, and like I said, I'm very proud of myself for it. Like, but going into it, I have kind of shifted. My fear isn't now like what it would have been. It would have been like, but what if the young people are mean to me? Like, I mean, if they are, I'll be sad, but like I'll be able to deal with it. But like I think mine's the same as Andrea. It's just like trying to understand and learn a new skill is always difficult. And like I'm the same. I'm very technophobic. Like I'm pretty sure it took me like a year to learn how to use Instagram and stuff. Like, so I think that's been the thing that's held me back the most is just like I don't want to start an interview and then look silly and be like, oh, can we stop? I don't know what I'm doing here. So I think that's been my like main fear. But I think now I'm very confident and very like looking forward to interviews.
Do any of you kind of feel like a sense of responsibility or pressure of this project? Like, do you feel, I don't know, do you feel that pressure at any time?
Responsibility, yeah. I don't know. I don't want to sound rude, but I don't know what you mean by pressure. Like, as in, to create something good, that's what I feel pressure about. Like, to put my effort into something and to see something come out of it, that's good. Again, that's just me being perfectionist, like I have been for ages. So I think, like, we're doing stuff with, like, the Liverpool museums and the art galleries. So for me, the pressure isn't quite as, like, you know, like pressure from a normal job where it's kind of like, well, if you don't do great, you know, you'll get fired. It's more, if I don't do great, I will be disappointed with myself. So I think my pressure is coming from myself rather than anyone else.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if we're going into schools and we're going into youth clubs and we're interviewing young people, is there that pressure of, you know, I have to get this right because their voice deserves to be heard? Like,
Yeah. And I feel like that's coming from the child within, because I didn't get my voice heard as a child because so many people would come in and be like, this is what we want you to tell and blah, blah, blah. But it never really happened. So I feel like we should be getting their voices heard. And if we don't, I'll be so upset with myself. Like, I feel like all of us would be so disappointed. And the pressure of, like, not, obviously good is coming out of it and it will come out of it, but not doing something big, like, so, like, life-changing for people, which obviously it's understandable if it doesn't, because it's the first project that's ever kind of happened like it. But I think all of us is feeling that pressure of not getting the young people's voices heard.
I also think because we are the first, like, PAC project, we're the first thing structured in the way that we are, like, that this project has been structured. We're the first people to do that. I think that also adds a bit of pressure because we're so passionate about PAC that we want it to carry on when we're not the ones doing it. We want other young people to get the opportunities that we have. So I think that also kind of adds a bit of pressure to, like,
Leave behind a legacy.
yeah, to show people, like, all right, we're not doing PAC anymore, but you can. Yeah.
you've all touched on that word legacy, I think, which is interesting. Like, if you imagine yourself now on the final day of the project, which will be a very sad day, I think, for us all.
Yeah.
What do you hope the legacy will be?
For myself personally, and I know for a lot of others, I think that with the legacy, it's just that we've made a difference, that all of this work has been for something and that a change has been made, that young people have something that they can reference to see what's going on in our area, because a lot of the data and stuff is very London centric. So this helps spread out that data and it gives them an opportunity to see what's going on. And with whatever change we've made, it allows them to carry that on and make changes of their own.
Because I thought that, like, picking up on what you said, every city who has, like, a high level of youth violence, they've got a case study. London, Birmingham, Glasgow, Merseyside doesn't. And I feel like one thing that we could do, which would be amazing, is make that case study and put the records and numbers out there for people to know, because people don't know and people just brush it aside thinking, oh, it mustn't be that bad, which it is, because we have to live through it every day and we've got to see it every day, but people don't know because it isn't being said.
Yeah, I think, like, mine's kind of similar to Lily's, is, like, I want to look at, like, a young person, not a specific young person, and have them know that their voice does matter, and that even if they themselves couldn't make a huge change, there are so many other people around them that could. Like, if they banded together, that kind of thing. Like, nothing's impossible. And if you are a young person, that doesn't stop you from having that potential to make such a big change. So I just want every young person to know, like, how valuable they are. And I think, obviously, that is kind of a smaller goal than kind of, like, something huge, just, like, wanting to do, like, a case study. But I think that's something just personal to me, especially because, like, I've had certain people inspire me, and just, like, I always wonder if they know how much they actually have inspired me and how much they've, you know, affected my life, but they don't know. So I think being able to look at the project and say, like, I know that at least one young person from this now knows that they are valuable and that their opinions and their input means so much to somebody.
What would your message be to any young people listening who may be like struggling or on the edge of falling into this culture? Like, what would you say to them?
Just let them know that they're so valuable. As much as it can be so difficult to see that you are, like, you are so valuable to somebody. And even if they, like, I've lost friends recently, and I kind of did go into this mindset of like, I am not important anymore. But like, just knowing that even if it's not right now, and even if you can't feel that, like, that value, it's still there. And as much as you might not be able to feel it yourself, you are so valuable.
I feel like anyone who is in that situation, they need to speak to someone, and they need to speak to someone as soon as possible. Because if you leave it to like carry on and you think, oh, it's not that big of a problem, you're going to get too deep into it where it's going to be hard to get out of it. You need to find stability. Go to after school clubs, find a youth club you like, find a sport you like, make better friends, because if your friends are doing that, they're not your friends. I'm telling you that they are not your friends, because your friends will not put you up and set you up to fail like that. You need to speak to your family, teachers, police even, and I know you can trust them, especially if you aren't doing anything illegal. You can go to them and help. Obviously, the whole stigma with snitches and grasses, it's kind of hard to get out of that. Oh, I don't want to be a grass, because it's ingrained into our brains to the fact that we're in year 2 saying, why are you snitching? Don't know why we are like, but we are. But yeah, I think you need to find a stability, and you need to find better friends, and you need to speak to someone, anyone.
Yeah, I mean, Kate and Andrea have covered most of what I was going to say, but just try and prevent yourself from falling down that rabbit hole. Even if it's a case of if you're already down it, just finding a ledge and getting some form of stability. Have a group of friends you can go and talk to. Like Andrea said, a youth theatre you can go to. But just know that you are important. No one can take away your self-worth, and no one can make you feel inferior unless you let them.
Andrea, I know you touched a bit there about that grass culture. What's your thoughts on that?
The grass culture, I don't like it personally. It depends what type of situation I'm in. I would, if needed be. But I think the grass culture, it's horrible because, like I said, it's ingrained into our brains since a child. Like, you've got that saying, stitches get snitches, and why you being a grass? And it's people are saying that from like, you're like getting year 2 and you're like, oh, I'll tell miss. And it's like, why are you being a grass? And it's like, you're like, how old are you? 5, and you're saying stuff like that. So it's like normalised because we are saying it so young. I don't like the grass culture because it's to the point where people are dying for the postcode because they won't snitch. Like, you're literally dying, your bro's dying, your mate's dying, someone's brother's dying, someone's sister's dying because you don't want to tell the police, and they're not getting justice either. Like, I've seen people get not seen, but I know people who have been shot and they haven't got justice, and the mum hasn't got justice, and it's so sad because everyone knows who's done it. No one wants to own up to it because being a snitch is so bad. Like, it's such a bad thing to be labelled as. And it's like, I'd rather, like, don't know. It infuriates me to speak about it.
You'd rather not say anything than be labelled as a grass for your own safety's sake.
Okay, there's that safety wise. I understand, obviously, if you know, if you snitch, you're gonna get hurt, or your family's gonna get hurt. But it's like, it's so ridiculous. So
other than that, the grass culture, we mentioned that came up quite a lot. Are there any other themes or things that you've found surprising during the research so far, would you say?
There's nothing that's like springing to mind personally, but I also haven't done that many interviews yet. But I think like a lot of people haven't known where to start with me. I feel like that's like, obviously I've only spoken to quite young people, so I feel like the whole idea of youth violence is something that they don't know about a lot. So I feel like if you go in and you're like, what's your experience with youth violence? They almost don't know what it is enough. And chances are they have experienced it though. Like, it's just that idea of like, well, this is normal, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah. I think when we did the pilot project, one specific young person, they said something about James
Bulger case.
And that surprised me so bad because that was like, you weren't even born, and that is something you fear. And it's like you're living for your parents' fear because your parents have obviously said something like, oh, be careful because this little lad happened. And it's like a generational thing.
trauma.
And it's like even when I think about it, what like my mum and dad have went through, it's like because they've told me stories, I'm thinking like, oh, I wouldn't want that to happen to me. And it's like, that surprised me because it's like they weren't even born and they knew about it and that they feared it. And it's like you're living for your parents' fear.
I think that's really interesting. And I think what's specifically surprised me was just how much learned behaviour there was from these young people. Were going in, and even if they haven't experienced anything themselves, they were genuinely afraid to go outside because of what they've heard on the news or on social media.
Yeah.
And that just shocked me because like these kids were 10 or 11 years old and they were just saying how much they were scared to go outside. And it's really sad, I think. Like they are growing up and from the moment they're born, they're being told to be afraid, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I was always told as a kid, like, don't go in the park when it's dark because there'll be people in there and there aren't good people. Like, and even to this day, I get nervous around like parks, especially when it's like getting dark, because I was told that from such a young age. And I think it doesn't even have to be something that you've been told specifically. I think like stuff that you see when you're young, like Andrea said, you see it in so many places. It's on telly, it's in games, it's in like even like books. Like there's so many like more recent books that are more violent. Like there's just so many places for you to see it now that it doesn't even have to be like direct. Like it doesn't have to be my mum said I can't do this or my dad said I shouldn't do this. It's now kind of like I saw this and now I'm a bit nervous about places.
But that also has a negative effect because you see it in social media and that's making kids do it. Like you see like music videos with like masks and like gang signs and you see little kids doing it and it's like, what are you doing? Or that music, that TikTok from the Scouser, do you know what I'm on about?
Yeah.
Now, why are kids singing that? Like, and they don't even know what they're singing.
Exactly, yeah.
They don't even know what they're singing yet, and they're singing it because it's all over TikTok, and they think it's like, oh, it's a trend, and it's just like social media can be such a bad role model on younger people, and
Do you think youth violence has become cool in a way?
It's normalised because you see it in games, in movies, and while these companies will put age restrictions on, people don't follow them anymore. They're not as strict. It's not a law. Yes, it is advised that people from a certain age don't watch or don't play this game, but they could watch their brothers, they can watch their sisters, they can watch their siblings, they can watch them playing it, and in turn, they want to have a go at the game, and it's normalised. I mean, look at GTA for an example. That's a game that's centred around violence, but it has so many downloads and discs sold because it is so popular.
Yeah, and also like I know I could talk about the whole like do video games cause violence topic for ages, but like it obviously does have some sort of knock-on effect, as does everything. But like I grew up watching my brother play GTA. I always used to play it, didn't know how to play it, just went around punching people. But that's never translated into me like
As a person.
wanting to punch someone in real life. I've never actually wanted to punch someone properly, as in actually genuinely considered it. But I know that it's this idea of I've seen it in fiction, therefore it must happen in reality, or it must be fine in reality, because in games it's so easy to like get away from like any sort of repercussion, because obviously it's a game, it needs to be interesting. You can't just be like, well, you punched someone, so now you're going to get arrested. So I understand, obviously, like games shouldn't just be like cancelled, but I think there's a responsibility of like whether it's parents, teachers, or the games themselves telling people like this is fiction, this isn't reality, in the same way that like this is a really kind of silly example, but like I'm reading a book with dragons in it. I don't expect to go see a dragon, but like I know that that's kind of a very like crude example, but it's kind of the same vein of like I've seen this in fiction. I've seen characters do this. I've played as the character and done these things. I cannot do that in reality, though. That's not a real
they don't
action.
translate.
It is separating it, isn't it? It's separating that fiction from reality, and sometimes that gets blurred.
Yeah.
And I think for some young people, that's a very difficult thing to comprehend.
Yeah.
So if we talk a little bit about what we've got coming up for the project, I know we've mentioned before we've just started our research, but you know, this is your chance to plug anything you want to, basically.
See us at Pride. We're going to be at Pride. We've got face paint. We've got flags.
We may have some merch.
Yeah, merch coming along. Check on the bio.
I forgot we had cameras then. I was just like,
So did I. We got so engrossed.
But what else? We got loads of social action coming up.
Yeah.
We won't go into too much detail because
It's
go
on
to
the
the
down
next,
low.
but watch the next podcast for that.
Yeah, you'll just have to
Yeah.
stay tuned to figure out what happens next.
become a change maker to stay extra up to date, you know.
Yeah, well, we have our Instagram where we are posting monthly pack news made by one of our lovely co-workers. So if you ever want to see what we've been up to in the past, have a check on YPA's Instagram.
Sound like pro podcasters here, don't we?
I know.
Plug in the next episode already. The final thing I want to ask all our guests on the PAC-Cast is the question that our project resolves around, basically, which is if you could change one thing about youth violence, what would it be? So if we start with you, Lily.
Oh, I have to go first. If I had to change one thing about youth violence, obviously the most common answer you'd get is that it didn't happen. Which is, what I'd want to say, but more that it's taken seriously. People notice it more and don't just brush it off, and don't put stereotypes on it with like, oh, boys will be boys, girls will be girls. It's seen as one thing.
Andrea?
Yeah, like Lily said, I would generally just stop it, but obviously that's inevitable because when we don't live in some sort of utopia where everyone holds hands and we all love each other. We know that. But I think what I'd like to do to help prevent it is more opportunities for young people, more safe spaces like youth clubs, like YPAS that provides mental health for young people. But yeah, I think more opportunities for younger people and for young people to be taken seriously because we actually do know what we're talking about. People think like we don't, but we do.
Yeah, I feel like mine's the exact same. It's just like listen to young people. We know what we're talking about. We have these first-hand and second-hand experiences, and like just like value us more than we have been because we've seen in the last couple of years how little it can feel like we're valued.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting.
No worries. If you are 10 to 20 years old, live in Merseyside and want to answer that question or about other issues that affect you or know anyone that would be, then visit www.ypas.org.uk/PAC project or email pacpeerresearchers@ypas.org.uk. Thank you.